Cognitive load theory is the hidden force shaping our learning, decision-making, and problem-solving abilities. It's astonishing how often we overload our brains with information, hindering our ability to think clearly and make sound judgments in our daily lives. As we delve into the intricacies of cognitive load theory, get ready to uncover the surprising ways your mind is wired to process information and discover how to unlock its full potential. At its core, cognitive load theory suggests that our brains have a limited capacity to process information, and when this capacity is exceeded, our ability to learn, make decisions, and solve problems is significantly impaired. This idea is rooted in the concept of working memory, which refers to the mental system responsible for temporarily holding and manipulating information. One of the major psychological theories that underpins cognitive load theory is the idea of dual store memory, proposed by Atkinson and Shiffrin in 1968. This theory posits that information first enters our sensory memory, then moves into short-term memory, and finally, if consolidated, into long-term memory. However, it's the limited capacity of our short-term or working memory that becomes a bottleneck when dealing with excessive cognitive load. John Sweller, an Australian educational psychologist, is often credited with developing cognitive load theory in the 1980s. Sweller's work built upon earlier research on human cognition and learning, emphasizing how instructional design can either support or hinder the learning process by affecting the cognitive load imposed on learners. According to Sweller, there are three types of cognitive load: intrinsic, extraneous, and germane. Intrinsic load refers to the inherent difficulty of the material being learned. Extraneous load is caused by poorly designed instruction that does not support learning, and germane load refers to the effort exerted by learners to process and understand new information. Over time, our understanding of cognitive load theory has evolved to include more nuanced views on how different types of cognitive load interact and how they can be managed in educational settings. For instance, research has shown that when intrinsic load is high due to complex learning material, reducing extraneous load through clear and concise instruction can significantly improve learning outcomes. Moreover, fostering an environment that promotes germane load, where learners are actively engaged in processing and making sense of new information, can lead to deeper understanding and better retention. A significant body of research has been dedicated to understanding how cognitive load theory applies to real-world learning scenarios. For example, studies have demonstrated that multimedia learning environments, such as those using both text and images, can sometimes increase extraneous cognitive load due to the split attention effect, where learners must divide their attention between different sources of information. However, strategically designed multimedia instruction that integrates visual and textual information in a way that supports learning can reduce this effect and enhance understanding. In everyday life, understanding cognitive load theory can help us navigate situations more effectively. For instance, when faced with making complex decisions, being aware of our cognitive limitations can prompt us to break down the decision-making process into simpler, more manageable parts, thereby reducing cognitive overload. Similarly, in learning new skills or information, recognizing the signs of excessive cognitive load, such as frustration or decreased productivity, can signal the need for a different approach, perhaps one that involves taking regular breaks, seeking additional support, or simplifying the learning material. The therapeutic implications of cognitive load theory are also noteworthy. In clinical settings, therapists often work with clients to manage overwhelming situations by teaching strategies to reduce cognitive load. This might involve mindfulness techniques to focus attention, cognitive restructuring to simplify complex thought patterns, or problem-solving training to break down seemingly insurmountable challenges into more manageable tasks. Despite its widespread acceptance and application, cognitive load theory is not without controversy. Some critics argue that the theory oversimplifies the complexities of human cognition, failing to account for individual differences in learning styles, prior knowledge, and motivation. Others debate the practicality of distinguishing between different types of cognitive load in real-world educational settings, suggesting that such distinctions may not always be clear-cut. One fascinating area of research involves the concept of the expertise reversal effect. This phenomenon, identified by John Sweller and his colleagues, suggests that instructional techniques that are highly effective for novice learners can become less effective or even counterproductive for more experienced learners. The reasoning behind this is rooted in cognitive load theory. As individuals gain expertise in a particular domain, their working memory capacity for handling information related to that domain increases. However, if the instruction is designed with too much support or scaffolding, it can actually increase extraneous cognitive load for experts, hindering their learning. For instance, consider a study on medical students learning about surgical procedures. Novice students might benefit greatly from detailed step-by-step instructions and diagrams, as these reduce intrinsic cognitive load by breaking down complex information into manageable parts. However, for experienced surgeons, such detailed guidance could become redundant, potentially increasing extraneous cognitive load by forcing them to process unnecessary information. This example illustrates how understanding cognitive load theory can inform the design of educational materials and instruction to better match the needs of learners at different levels of expertise. Another critical aspect of cognitive load theory is its implications for technology-enhanced learning environments. The integration of multimedia, such as videos, animations, and interactive simulations, into educational settings has been a significant trend in recent years. While these tools can enhance engagement and understanding by providing dynamic and interactive representations of complex concepts, they also pose the risk of overloading learners with too much information. Research in this area has highlighted the importance of careful design to avoid the split attention effect, where learners must mentally integrate separate sources of information, for example text and images, and the redundancy effect, where presenting the same information in multiple formats, for example narration and text, can be counterproductive. A practical strategy to mitigate these effects involves techniques like temporal contiguity, where related visual and auditory information is presented simultaneously, and spatial contiguity, where related visual elements are placed near each other. For example, in an online tutorial about car engine repair, animations of the engine's parts could be synchronized with audio explanations, and diagrams could place labels directly on or near the components they describe. By leveraging such design principles grounded in cognitive load theory, educators can create more effective learning materials that support learners in managing their cognitive resources efficiently. The therapeutic applications of cognitive load theory also extend into areas like stress management and cognitive training. Therapists may use strategies based on this theory to help clients manage overwhelming situations by teaching them how to prioritize tasks, break down complex problems, or use mindfulness techniques to reduce mental overload. For instance, individuals suffering from anxiety might benefit from learning how to focus their attention on one task at a time, thereby reducing the extraneous cognitive load associated with multitasking or rumination. In terms of controversies and debates, some researchers argue that cognitive load theory could be more comprehensive by incorporating additional factors, such as emotional state, motivation, and social context. They suggest that an individual's willingness to engage with learning material and their perception of its relevance can significantly influence how they allocate cognitive resources. This critique underscores the complexity of human cognition and the need for ongoing research into how various psychological, social, and environmental factors interact to affect learning outcomes. Understanding these nuances of cognitive load theory can empower educators, therapists, and learners themselves to make informed decisions about how to structure learning environments, instructional materials, and personal study habits. By recognizing the signs of excessive cognitive load, such as confusion, frustration, or decreased productivity, individuals can adopt strategies like taking breaks, seeking additional support, or simplifying complex tasks. This not only aids in the management of cognitive resources, but also fosters a more enjoyable and effective learning experience. As we delve deeper into the intricacies of cognitive load theory, it's essential to explore how our brains process information under various conditions. One crucial aspect is the distinction between intrinsic, extraneous, and germane cognitive load. Intrinsic cognitive load refers to the inherent difficulty of the material being learned, while extraneous cognitive load is imposed by the way information is presented, such as confusing instructions or poor layout. Germane cognitive load, on the other hand, is the effort devoted to processing and understanding the material, which is actually beneficial for learning. Research has shown that when learners are able to manage their intrinsic and extraneous cognitive loads effectively, they can allocate more resources to germane cognitive load, leading to better comprehension and retention. For instance, a study on math problem solving found that students who were given clear, step-by-step instructions and relevant diagrams experienced lower extraneous cognitive load and were able to devote more mental resources to understanding the underlying mathematical concepts. Another significant area of research within cognitive load theory is the concept of cognitive overload. This occurs when the amount of information presented exceeds the learner's ability to process it, leading to decreased performance and increased frustration. A notable example of cognitive overload can be seen in the context of online learning platforms, where an overabundance of multimedia elements, such as videos, animations, and interactive simulations, can overwhelm learners and hinder their ability to focus on the essential material. The work of psychologist John Sweller has been instrumental in shaping our understanding of cognitive overload. Sweller's research has demonstrated that when learners are presented with too much information at once, they tend to engage in unnecessary mental processing, such as trying to reconcile redundant or irrelevant information. This can lead to a phenomenon known as the redundancy effect, where the presentation of duplicate information in multiple formats actually decreases learning outcomes. In contrast, techniques like the split attention effect have been shown to improve learning by reducing cognitive overload. This involves presenting related visual and auditory information in a way that minimizes the need for mental integration. For example, in an educational video about human anatomy, animations of the circulatory system could be synchronized with audio explanations, allowing learners to focus on the relationships between different components without having to mentally reconcile separate sources of information. The implications of cognitive load theory extend beyond education and into the realm of therapeutic interventions. Cognitive training programs, for instance, often aim to improve working memory capacity and reduce cognitive overload in individuals with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or other conditions characterized by executive function deficits. By teaching strategies like task segmentation, prioritization, and mindfulness, therapists can help clients manage their cognitive resources more effectively and improve overall cognitive functioning. Furthermore, researchers have begun to explore the role of emotional state and motivation in cognitive load theory. It is now recognized that an individual's emotional state can significantly influence their willingness to engage with learning material and allocate cognitive resources. For example, a study on math anxiety found that students who experienced high levels of anxiety during problem-solving tasks tended to devote more mental resources to worrying about their performance rather than focusing on the mathematical concepts themselves. For instance, a study on language acquisition found that students who were given clear, step-by-step instructions and relevant visual aids experienced lower extraneous cognitive load and were able to devote more mental resources to understanding the nuances of the language. One significant area of research within cognitive load theory is the concept of cognitive overload in real-world scenarios. A notable example of cognitive overload can be seen in the context of workplace training programs, where an overabundance of complex procedures, rules, and regulations can overwhelm new employees and hinder their ability to focus on essential tasks. The concept of emotional load has also been introduced as a factor that can impact an individual's ability to process information. Emotional load refers to the emotional demands placed on an individual, such as stress, anxiety, or frustration, which can divert cognitive resources away from learning and towards emotional regulation. Understanding the interplay between cognitive load and emotional load is crucial for developing effective strategies to support learners in managing their cognitive resources. In addition, the role of motivation in cognitive load theory has been explored through the lens of self-determination theory. This theory posits that individuals have inherent tendencies towards autonomy, competence, and relatedness, which can influence their motivation to learn and engage with challenging tasks. When learners feel a sense of autonomy and control over their learning environment, they are more likely to experience intrinsic motivation and allocate cognitive resources towards germane load, leading to deeper understanding and retention. The practical applications of cognitive load theory can be seen in various domains, including education, workplace training, and cognitive therapy. By understanding how to manage cognitive load, individuals can optimize their learning environments, reduce frustration, and improve overall performance. For instance, educators can design instructional materials that minimize extraneous cognitive load, while maximizing germane load, leading to more effective learning outcomes. In the context of cognitive therapy, cognitive load theory has been applied to develop interventions aimed at reducing cognitive overload and improving working memory capacity in individuals with cognitive deficits. In conclusion, cognitive load theory offers a profound understanding of how our minds process information, revealing the delicate balance between cognitive resources and learning outcomes. By recognizing the distinction between intrinsic, extrinsic, and germane load, we can optimize our learning environments, minimize unnecessary mental effort, and maximize retention. This theory has far-reaching implications for education, workplace training, and cognitive therapy, making it a vital concept in modern psychology. As we navigate our increasingly complex world, understanding cognitive load theory can help us mitigate the risks of information overload, reduce stress, and improve overall well-being. Ultimately, embracing the principles of cognitive load theory can empower us to take control of our own learning, leading to a more efficient, effective, and enjoyable journey of discovery. That's all for today's Psych with Sigmund. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, may your ego find balance between pleasure and reality.